Coming up on Mountain News this morning, days after a Tesla exploded in front of a Trump hotel. New details about the soldier police say was in the vehicle. The lingering questions as the investigation continues. Plus, funeral arrangements for the two men killed in a mudslide last week.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News this morning.
Good morning and thanks for joining us. It is 6 o'clock this Friday morning and today is January 3rd, 2025. Let's check in with meteorologist Megan Dusmall for a look at your forecast this morning. And now, Megan, we're heading into the weekend. We've got some cold temperatures, some snow in the forecast. It's definitely one to be weather aware for.
It is one to be weather aware for. I mean, starting today even, we're looking at those quite cold temperatures. So as you're heading into the weekend, this is kind of just like a preparation for how cold it's going to be, and it's going to get even colder. So let's take a look at the advisories that we have set out for today. Now, this is not why we're under a first alert weather day tomorrow. This is just a separate thing we're looking at. And we only have one county that is under an advisory. That is a winter weather advisory in Logan County. So that's something we're keeping an eye on for today. We do have some snow coming into our area. Here are those feels like temperatures for this morning, though. And we are on the colder side of things. Feels like we are in the upper 20s and low 30s this morning, with the exception of Monticello feeling a little bit warmer as they have some warmer temperatures today. Now, here are the wind speeds that are causing some of those feels like temperatures to be much cooler than they are. And as we're going on to the live pinpoint Doppler radar, we're watching that snow come into eastern Kentucky, and it will continue to push on through, leaving the afternoon mostly dry. A snowflake or two could be expected, but should be exiting as you're getting to that 1 o'clock hour. Madison.
All right, Megan, thank you. Now to the latest in the Cybertruck explosion outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas. Authorities say an active duty U.S. soldier killed himself before the rented Tesla he was sitting in went up in flames. But there are still many questions left unanswered. CBS's Jared Hill has more.
After the New Year's Day Cybertruck explosion in front of a Trump hotel in Las Vegas, new details are emerging about the man investigators believe was responsible. Police say 37-year-old Matthew Levelsberger, an active-duty U.S. Army soldier, shot himself in the head before the truck went up in flames.
I'm comfortable calling it a suicide with the bombing that occurred immediately thereafter.
His body identified with the help of DNA, a military ID and passport found inside the truck, alongside multiple guns. Investigators are also piecing together a timeline. They say Levelsberger rented the Tesla in Denver, Colorado while on leave Saturday. Using charging station data, they tracked his journey to Las Vegas. At one point, the vehicle takes a lap through the valet of the Trump International Hotel before returning, parking, and then seconds later, the Cybertruck explodes. According to authorities, Levelsberger, a highly decorated Army Special Forces Master Sergeant, had consumer-grade fireworks and fuel accelerants in the vehicle.
The level of sophistication is not what we would expect from an individual with this type of military experience.
Motive, still a question.
It's not lost on us that it's in front of, of the Trump building, that it's a Tesla vehicle. But we don't have information at this point that definitively tells us or suggests it was because of this particular ideology.
In Colorado Springs, authorities searched the suspect's home. Relatives tell CBS News Levelsberger's wife hadn't heard from him in days. Jared Hill, CBS News.
Investigators say they have not yet gone through Levelsberger's phone or computers. Despite similarities to the New Year's Day attack in New Orleans, authorities say they don't have evidence to believe the two are linked. At least 14 people were killed and dozens more were injured in New Orleans in the first hours of 2025 after a truck plowed through a crowd. Now folks in the city are coming together during the aftermath of the tragedy. WYMT's Amelia Lee spoke with an Eastern Kentucky native who used to call New Orleans home.
The people who on, the first day of the year are planning funerals.
Joshua Holland grew up in Knott County. After moving to New Orleans in 2011, he started a church, and his love, service, and dedication for the people in the city began.
And, my heart just breaking for the city, because you love it. New Orleans gets in your soul.
Holland says on January 1st, he woke up to calls and texts from family and friends in New Orleans, leaving him with deep feelings of devastation for the place he called home, filled with people he loves.
When one of your family members is hurting, you're hurting too. And when the city's hurting and you see all the people posting, prayers for New Orleans.
As a man of God, Holland says having faith during these difficult times is important. He says a prayer for peace and unity for his family in New Orleans.
Pray for the Holy Spirit to move mightily on his people down here, to be bold and to lead.
He does not want this attack to overshadow the love and care that shapes New Orleans and its people.
The reputation that New Orleans has is not fair, and that's one of the reasons why this news is also heartbreaking for the city, because it's not fair. It's not fair to a city that's full of people, full of amazing, godly, awesome people that just love people.
State Command Chaplain for the Louisiana National Guard, Paige Brooks, says the city is picking up the pieces. He took part in a prayer walk on Bourbon Street, along with officials, where they laid roses for the victims.
Praying over those that have passed and praying for the grieving families, but then also praying for our community and our city. And so it's a strong city, so there's still the shock of what happened, but also people are coming together, and as a city, we're going to make it, and we appreciate all the prayers and good thoughts this way.
In Perry County, Amelia Lee, WYMT, Mountain News.
The FBI is investigating the attack as an act of terrorism. Governor Andy Beshear posted on social media Wednesday about the attack. He said, quote, "The deadly attack on New Orleans was an act of evil and cruelty. Brittany and I are praying for the victims and their families." New questions today about the broken bollards that were designed to protect Bourbon Street from precisely this kind of vehicle attack. Why did New Orleans wait so long to start replacing the malfunctioning barricades? And did the city advertise to would-be attackers that the street was unprotected? National investigative reporter Brendan Keefe has some answers from New Orleans.
Securing Bourbon Street one day after a deadly attack. Workers deploy stronger temporary barricades to stop a future threat, because on New Year's Day, New Orleans' existing bollard barricades weren't working.
I'm standing in the middle of Bourbon Street, right on top of one of the old broken bollard systems. There are 2 stationary bollards on either side, but there used to be 4 bollards, 2 stationary bollards, and 2 moving bollards on rails, but they're gone. They were removed because they would not only get stuck open, but also get stuck closed, blocking Bourbon Street to all vehicles, including ambulances and fire trucks.
If in fact that's correct, that they were not operable, that's unacceptable. And if they were not operable, there should have been a plan B. There should have been a tow truck, there should have been a fire truck, there should have been some other item or something steadfast there to disallow any vehicles from being able to plow through the crowd.
We combed through documents all the way back to 2017 showing the city knew about the terror threat, including this assessment labeling the French Quarter as a risk and target area for terrorism that the FBI has identified as a concern that the city must address. New Orleans installed that first set of bollards right before the 2018 Sugar Bowl. The sliding mechanisms worked until they got jammed with all sorts of things, including Mardi Gras beads.
After the original bollards failed, the city started relying on these wedge barriers that were put in place. They can be dropped to allow delivery vehicles and emergency vehicles in, but they stop a truck or car attack. Yet look at the sidewalk. There's no barricade here, though it does appear they place them near pre-existing obstructions like light poles and fire hydrants.
The wedge barriers were intentionally down on New Year's to make sure emergency vehicles could get through. Only a police car was blocking Bourbon at Canal Street. The attacker whipped his truck around it on the sidewalk and drove nearly 4 blocks down a virtually barrier-free Bourbon Street. Did he know he could get through? Google Street View shows no bollards in 2017, then the original bollards in place in 2018, and then those wedge barriers in 2022. But the city also published the fact its bollards weren't working on the Public Works Department website. Multi-year plans for the ongoing project to replace the bollards are online, complete with a map of where they aren't now and a timeline showing that the new barriers would not be in place until just before the Super Bowl next month. The question remains, had the new bollards been in place and deployed, could anyone have driven as far or as fast?
The mayor of New Orleans was asked about the bollards at the New Year's Day news conference, where officials said the fix is nearly complete. Louisiana's governor vowed to identify any lapses in security and close them. Many police departments in Kentucky are working to keep their communities safe from similar tragedies. The Lexington Police Department says their first step to keeping those in the city safe is preparation and having specific security plans before and during large-scale events. However, they say they are never done adjusting those plans. They say at the end of the day, the biggest thing anyone can do to help them is to provide tips about criminal activity. We are learning more about two men who died while digging for coal in Clay County. Funeral services for Donald Short and Jonathan Hoskins are set for today. The incident happened last week when the hill they were digging on collapsed. It has been a tremendous loss for folks involved. It is a loss that has one of the families financially strapped, and there is a major concern as far as how they will move forward.
You know, something to heat their homes, and you know, that's what we do in Appalachia. We rely on our resources.
A joint funeral service is being hosted for both men at the Brown Mission Church in Oneida.
Snow is falling in eastern Kentucky this morning and will continue to move throughout eastern Kentucky throughout the day. It will clear as we're heading into the early afternoon hours, with just a little bit of snowflakes falling in the evening and into your Saturday morning. But Saturday will be nice and clear, partly cloudy skies, and temperatures still just as cold. Something to look forward to as you're heading through the next couple days is the Quadrantids meteor shower. It's peaking tonight. You can watch that from 11:59 tonight to 2 a.m. tomorrow. It'll be up to 40 meteors per hour. We do have a nice little break in the clouds as you're looking at that 10 o'clock hour, but heading into that midnight to 2 a.m. hour, the clouds will be picking up, so it might be a little difficult to see the shower move through the night sky. But if you do, send a picture into the WYMT First Alert weather app. Madison.
Thanks, Megan, and thank you for joining us on Mountain News this morning. More news is on the way.